A few years ago, I was on my way home. I usually take the bus, even though I'm pretty uncomfortable with strangers being too close to me. But I have no driver's license and therefore not much of a choice. Anyway, I'm sitting there next to a window listening to music as a man sits down next to me. I don't think much of it, the bus is pretty full. I slide a little closer to the window so the man does not come too close to me. Out of the corner of my eye, I notice that he keeps looking at me, which makes me very uncomfortable, so I obviously look out the window and try to ignore him. I'm getting pretty nervous at this point. Luckily, we're close to my stop. As the bus drives up to said stop, I shuffle around a bit and get up halfway. As far as I'm concerned, this is a normal social cue for strangers on a bus that I want to get out at this stop and for them to let me get past their seat. Well, this guy doesn't see it that way. So I take out my earbuds and tell him politely that I need to get out at the stop and ask him to let me through. He just grins and says, "No." I do not want to push past him because then he has direct access to my body and now I'm really anxious. I think he sees it and takes up even more space so that I cannot get past him. I also notice that he looks really unkempt and is about double my age. Also, I'm a rather petite girl and do not come across as very threatening or anything. So I say again that I have to get out, this time very loud so that other passengers can hear me and help me in case of emergency. The man lets me pass but still doesn't give me much space. When I finally get out and walk in the direction of my apartment, I notice that he's behind me. I get scared. It's winter and even if it's not too late, it's very dark in the city and not much going on. I call a friend and ask if I can come to her so the man will not find out where I live. We're on the phone all the way until I'm with her. When I finally arrive, I turn around for the first time. The man is still there and grins at me. In the apartment, we keep looking out the window, but the man is gone. My friend walks me home later. I haven't seen this man since, but I'm still nervous about having to take the bus, and I always try to be as close as possible to the driver. So first things first, a little background info for you guys. First, this happened to my little sister, who is the best thing that ever happened to me. I love her more than anything on this planet. There's a 10-year difference between us, and during the time of these events, she was 10 and I was 20. I was also in college 2 hours away from home, which made the situation even more unnerving for me. Another important fact is that my mom runs an in-home daycare, and at this time one of the kids my mom kept rode the bus home with my sister. For the sake of protecting the children, I'll refer to my sister as my sister, and the child my mom kept as Age. I promise all of these facts will come together. So one day after school, my sister is heading up to her bus to go home. She ended up walking on the wrong bus and noticed when she got up the stairs, and realized it wasn't the same group of kids as our normal bus. She turns to get off the bus to head to the correct one when the bus driver stops her and tells her to get on. My sister explained that she was on the wrong bus, but the bus driver adamantly tells her that she wasn't and to get on the bus. So my sister, being young and afraid of getting in trouble, takes a seat and proceeds to internally freak out. Fast forward to 4:30 when the kids usually get off the bus at my parents'. H gets off the bus as normal. She informs my mom that my sister hadn't gotten on the bus that afternoon, and my mom starts to panic. At this point, my sister has been on the wrong bus for about an hour and a half, and according to her, he has still made no effort at communication with her. Now here is where the story really starts to get unsettling. After discovering her absence, my mother calls the school and informs them that my sister didn't get off the bus. After they confirm that my sister didn't accidentally go with the car riders group, they start radioing all the buses. Now at some point before the radio call comes in, my sister becomes that last kid on the bus. The bus driver still hasn't acquired about her place of residence or even her name, but is still driving around. My sister overhears the radio calls asking if any of the buses have a student by the name of my sister's name. My sister speaks up at this point and tells the driver that that is her and that she is on the wrong bus. The bus driver didn't respond to her in any way and also didn't respond to the radio call. Just for clarification, we have no idea when my sister became the last kid, nor do we know where he was driving or where he was driving to. The only points in the timeline we know for sure is that she was on the bus at 3, H got off the bus 4:30 to 4:45, and that initial radio call probably went out about 10 minutes after H got off the bus. So the school contacts my mother and tells her that none of the bus drivers still on their routes have my sister on board, and that a good portion of the buses had already returned to the bus garage. While they tell my mom this, they radioed the buses yet again and the bus driver still doesn't respond. Around this time, my dad has come home from work. When the school calls them back and tell them they hadn't located her, both the school employees and my parents are flipping shit. My mom was even about to send my dad out to drive around looking for buses. The school sends people to search the classrooms and bathrooms in case she got left behind somehow, and they also sent someone to the bus garage to search the buses in case she got on the wrong one and fell asleep or something. They also radio out to the few buses that are still running one more time. This time my sister's bus driver answers back that he has her on the bus. They tell him to head back to the garage where my mom will meet him and pick my sister up. To this day I am very thankful they didn't give him our address to go to instead. It was about 6 when the bus got to the garage, so my sister is obviously pretty shaken up after spending roughly 3 hours with this pathetic excuse for a human. My mom didn't know the whole story yet, so she doesn't confront the driver. When they get home, my sister relays the story to my parents, who then realize that this could have turned out a lot worse. My mom calls me and tells me the story after this all took place. I will never forget that haunting silence after she finished telling me the series of events. To this day, I still feel that weight of dread in the pit of my stomach, thinking of what that person could have done. Then I spoke with my sister over the phone, and the mist of anxiety still lingering around her words was enough to break my heart. I sobbed once we hung up. As her big sister, I just wanted to take her pain. The next day, my mom calls to complain about the driver and tells him the story of my sister's hellish bus ride. They inform her that he had just started working for them about a week before and they were going to look into it. To be honest, I don't remember if they gave her the driver's name or not. What I do know, however, is that the guy quit within a week after this. Apparently just stopped showing up with no notice. My sister had gotten an iPhone for her birthday that year, which my mom forbade my sister from taking to school. After this happened, my mom made her carry it in the bottom of her book bag every day in case something like that ever happened again. I am beyond thankful that my sister made it home safe that night, as I know that a lot of stories like this don't end with reunion. Though I am thankful, I am also livid that this man had the audacity to put my sister through that. I don't want to even imagine a life without my sister. But one thing that I do enjoy imagining from time to time is beating the shit out of that bus driver. When I was in middle school, I took the city bus to school because my parents couldn't drive me and no school buses routed to my neighborhood. I didn't live in a particularly good place, but I never felt unsafe. That morning I got on the bus to go to school. 6th grade at that time, so I was about 12. But let me tell you that I've always looked much younger than my actual age. It was decently crowded, so I go to my usual spot in the back. A few stops go by and then a man gets on and sits right next to me. It's been about 10 years now, but I still remember how he looked. Tall, thin, and Hispanic with long, straight black hair. There was maybe 1 or 2 seats open, so it wasn't weird that he was next to me at first. I just figured he sat in the first seat he saw open. Then he started to talk to me. I can't remember what he said at first, but being early in the morning and already peeved that I had to share my space with him, I just made vague, disinterested noises at him. Then he asked where I was going. That's when my spidey senses started to tingle because obviously it was early in the morning and I am a child, so I'm going to school. So I said school, in a duh kind of way. I realize now he was probably looking for me to tell him which school. A few stops went by and the bus opened up some more seats, so I quickly went and found another empty seat. Not 5 minutes later, he follows and sits right next to me again, and still tries to get me to talk to him. He asked my name. I look to the front of the bus and see some 8th graders that I know from school and from riding this bus. My animal brain screams at me to find safety in the pack. I move up to the front of the bus and plant myself in the middle of them and basically press myself into them and give them help me eyes. The guy moves again and sits directly in front of me. He asks my name again, and one of the boys I'm sitting with, G, quickly calls me by a fake name and turns his body so he's kind of shielding me, and carries on a conversation with me until we get to our school. The group of 8th graders basically formed a circle around me and we huddled off the bus, and I turned to make sure the creep didn't follow us off the bus. Thankfully he didn't follow, but for the next few weeks I either caught the waiter or wear bus in case he was on it again. And since the bus stop was right in front of my school, I was afraid he knew where I went and would show up. Luckily I never saw him again. Thank God. I'm a 16-year-old guy and I wasn't expecting this to happen to me. So I just want to point out that this doesn't only happen to women. 2 days ago I was coming back home from school. For background information, the bus the students go to goes to the center of town. I take that one and then I take another bus to get to my stop where I have to walk maybe 200 or 300 meters away from my house. I took the bus from the school towards the center and then waited at my stop. There were other kids from other schools that waited, and the creep. He wore his hat down and was glancing at me every now and then. I ignored him by putting my headphones on. This lasted for about 10 minutes until the bus finally came. I forgot about the guy but was still creeped out. I got on the bus and took an empty seat. I noticed the creep get on the bus too and was walking towards me. My red flags weren't out yet, but I still checked just in case. He took a seat behind me and then the bus started heading to the next stop. I heard something in the background of my music. I turned the volume down and I heard a voice come from behind me, from this same fucking guy. I pressed pause and heard him ask, "Hey, I think we live near each other. Can you just tell me which stop we're supposed to leave?" Of course, you'd think it's stupid of me to tell him the truth, but it'd be a bit of an asshole move to tell him bullshit if he lives near me. The bus approached near a stop that is at 5 or 6 stops from my place. I changed seats, imitating as if I needed to get off the bus. The creep moved too. Damn it, he's lying and following me. I then waited for one of the busier stops and God was with me because there was a crowd of teens probably planning to smoke and drink. As soon as the doors opened, I ran the fuck away from the bus and crossed the roads and entered a random shop. I kept my head down and looked out the window. As soon as the students were separating, I looked for the creep, and I could see him looking for me. I took off my hoodie and put it in my bag. I then went to the bathroom to make my hair wet. I fucked up my hair to make myself look a little different and then left the shop. I walked a long way towards the next stop, making turns at every possibility. After walking around a bit, I went to a small cafe and waited there for a bit. I sent a text to my dad if he can come get me. He asked me why and I told him the whole thing. He picked me up in a flash and then drove me home. I don't know who the hell that guy was and what the hell he planned down. I don't think he lives near me and I fucking hope not, but whatever the fuck it is, I hope we never meet again. I was taking the bus home from the store one night around 7 to 8 p.m. It's a route that I took on a regular basis, so usually I recognize some of the people on it. Anyway, this guy that I've never seen before gets on a few stops after me. He's probably in his mid to late 40s and wearing construction attire. He keeps looking back at me as if he recognizes me or something, so I just kind of fake smile at him in hopes that he'd stop. Instead, he takes it as an invitation to start a conversation. He starts asking me all these invasive questions to which I give the most generic non-answers, hoping that maybe he'll notice that he's making me uncomfortable and leave me alone. Instead, he asks me out for drinks. I say, no thank you, I'm a minor. To which he replies something along the lines of, "That's okay, I don't mind. And then, maybe I can join you at home." I think he went on to explain that we could watch a movie and that he'd make me the best drink I'd ever tasted, but I interrupted him and told him that I was uncomfortable and didn't want to talk to him anymore. I put in my earbuds and watched him out of the corner of my eye for the rest of the ride. Every time someone pulled the corridor of the bus stop, he looked back to see if I was getting off. When it finally came to my stop, I was feeling pretty uncomfortable, but pulled the cord anyway. As soon as I started gathering my stuff, he started shifting like he was getting off too. When I stood up, so did he. I waited until he was off the bus before sitting back down in my seat. As the bus drove away, I saw that he was still standing at the stop waiting for me. I decided to ride the bus all the way back around for another 2 hours to eliminate the possibility that he was still waiting, and then rushed home. I suppose he could have just been a harmless stranger who just happened to be getting off at that stop, but it seems unlikely to me, honestly. I find it extra shady that I'd never seen him before and I'd never seen him again, even on the same bus at the same time. In retrospect, I probably should have at least reported it to the police just in case, but I was just blown away by the whole situation and didn't even think of it. Funnily enough, just months later at the intersection near my bus stop, I had an encounter with a different stranger who turned out to be wanted for assault. And a few months after that, yet another guy told me he'd buy me anything I wanted as long as it was under $7,000 at the crosswalk at the same damn intersection. The weird thing is that before these encounters, nothing like that had ever happened to me before, and nothing like that has happened since. It was just a weird few months, I guess.